Welcome to today's vlog, and today we begin with a question. Which book is the most widely printed book in the world? In other words, which book is the most copies printed in a particular year? I'll let you ponder on that one for a moment while I go on to speak about a message which Her Majesty the Queen sent this week to the Church of England General Synod. It's been her custom to attend General Synod every 5 years, I believe. But unfortunately, due to health issues, she wasn't able to attend this year's General Synod. And so, as she wasn't able to be there in person, she sent a message which was read to Synod by Prince Edward. Included in that message were these words: "It is hard to believe," said the Queen, "that it is over 50 years since Prince Philip and I attended the very first meeting of the General Synod. None of us can slow the passage of time. And while we often focus on all that has changed in the intervening years, much remains unchanged, including the gospel of Christ and his teachings." And the Queen is absolutely correct that the gospel of Christ remains the same. It is our foundation, the foundation for Christian life, the way of following Jesus. And of course, we are blessed to be able to read the Gospels and learn the teachings of Christ through our Bibles. The question for us is, do we read the Bibles? Do we study them? Through the Bible, God speaks to us. Are we listening? Jesus, remember, said, "People do not live on bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Through the Bible, we hear God speak words of life and hope and salvation. So what is the most printed book, do you think? Well, I've been reading recently, currently reading a book that is really challenging in many ways, but well worth reading. It's by a guy called Simon Ponsonby, who's an Anglican vicar. The book's called Different: Living the Holy Life. As I say, it is really, really challenging. It makes us think about how we are living our lives. And according to Simon Ponsonby's book, which was published in 2016, so it might be slightly out of date by now, in that year, something like 100 million Bibles were printed. However, that wasn't the most printed book. So what was it? Well, it was the IKEA catalogue. 200 million copies were printed in the year. The IKEA catalogue. Now, I'm not a fan of IKEA, but I know many people are. And sadly, Simon Ponsonby in his book points out this: it has to be said that some Christians are more familiar with the IKEA catalogue than they are with the Bible. Many Christians, he says, in Britain today know their Bibles less well than non-Christians would have done 50 years ago. And isn't that a sad state of affairs? That many followers of Jesus are not familiar with the Bible because they're not reading it. Relying on a once a week Sunday sermon to read the Bible, to learn about the Bible, is just not sufficient. I wonder if you've heard the story of a young girl called Mary Jones. She was desperate to have a copy of the Welsh Bible for her own. She wasn't well off by any means. In fact, she was brought up in quite a poor family, but she saved for something like 6 years to save enough to have a Bible of her own. And then she walked 26 miles over the countryside barefoot to where she knew she could buy a Bible. Such was her desire to have for herself a copy of the Bible, God's Word. John Wesley and Charles Wesley and others in the early 18th century at Oxford formed what was called the Holy Club. They met together regularly. They tried to live out their Christian life. And part of what they did was to practice spiritual disciplines. And as part of that, they had each 26 questions, which every day they would sit down and ponder. Questions which challenged how they were living their lives, how their spiritual journey was going. And two of the questions on that list were these. One, did the Bible live in me today? And two, do I give it time to speak to me every day? Did the Bible live in me today? Do I give it time to speak to me every day? Challenging questions. God speaks, but are we listening? God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.